We'll be continuing with Chapter 32 of Barry and the Boys, the CIA, the Mob, and America's Secret History by Daniel Hopsicker. Trinity is my name. What's ultimately most interesting about the story of Barry Seal is the question of just where all the money went and still goes. The illicit narcotics industry has suffered no discernible dip in sales since Seal's murder. Just the opposite, gross revenues in narcotics have risen. There must be quite a bit of discretionary income in a $300 billion a year business. Certainly enough to buy an election, even a presidential election. Our interest was piqued. Who gets to pass out all that fresh green? Who decides who gets what? By this point in our investigation, we feel no longer fascinated with stories of pilots skimming mere feet above the waves of the Gulf of Mexico on daring drug runs. The process of flying narcotics into the United States is no more eventful than driving a bus unless you're an amateur freelancer, and there are no longer many of them still around. What intrigued us now was whether we could, using Seal's own records as a guide, trace any of the money flows up the line. So we started with the tip we had received about drug money being laundered through a corporation named Trinity Oil or Trinity Energy. In tracking that company, we plunged down a rabbit hole which was as deep as any Alice ever saw in Wonderland. Before we resurfaced, we would discover that Seal's organization was linked to the vast criminal enterprise known as the Company, chronicled in Sally Denton's The Bluegrass Conspiracy, and to the heart of both this nation's major political parties. Barry Seal's attorney and partner Michael Roy Fugler, reinvented as an international trade consultant in Manhattan, had sold Trinity Energy for a front company we had been told was a drug money laundry vehicle for Seal's operation in the spring of 1995. Let's begin with this news release we discovered from Investment Dealers Digest Mergers and Acquisitions report, indicating that front companies set up by Barry Seal were being traded a decade after his death. Target Trinity Energy Corp., Baton Rouge, Louisiana Oil and Gas Exploration and Production. Acquirer International Realty Group Incorporated, Miami, Florida, provide real estate agency and appraisal services, own and operate commercial properties. A second release out of Miami on May 12, 1995 said much to the same thing. International Realty Group Incorporated to acquire Trinity Energy Corp. International Realty Group Incorporated, OTC Bulletin Board, IRGR, had agreed to acquire 100% of the real estate and energy assets from Trinity Energy Corporation and its affiliates Trinity, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Under the terms of the agreement, IRGR will acquire from Trinity Energy Estate Holdings located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, oil and gas rights located in the Port Hudson field in East Baton Rouge, Louisiana, other commercial real estate property, and additional working capital in exchange for approximately $21,500,000 in the form of 330,330 shares of IRGR common stock and convertible debentures in the aggregate amount of $21,250,000, the release stated. This timely strategic alliance of IRGR and Trinity comes at a time when the growth requirements of energy and real estate related companies needed greater access to the capital markets and financial services, said Michael Roy Fugler, newly appointed chairman of the board of IRGR. IRGR and Trinity can help fulfill such needs with full utilization of IRGR's international network developed over 30 years, providing valuation and appraisal services from both its Miami, Florida and Budapest, Hungary offices. Michael Roy Fugler, whose own fumbling smuggling exploits we were to hear about from several sources, was telling Trinity Energy Corporation, located in Barry's hometown of Baton Rouge, for almost $22 million, and Fugler would end up chairman of the board of the buying company. By the mid-1970s, Fugler was already deeply involved, as they say in legal parlance, in Barry's activities, an integral part of the smuggling organization. We heard from several SEAL associates accounts of Fugler's activities upon which the State Bar of Louisiana would presumably frown. Although, Louisiana being Louisiana, one can never be too sure. There is, for example, the locally famous anecdote in Baton Rouge about Fugler concerning the time he left a briefcase filled with over $100,000 of drug money sitting on the front car seat of a rental car at a Baton Rouge airport. Fugler, to his subsequent humiliation, had been too afraid to go back to retrieve it. Another Fugler sighting we heard about had occurred near Miami Airport right after the Screamer indictments were released in March of 1983. Barry Seal, Fugler, and Blackie were attempting to avoid arrest and get out of Florida without being directed. Barry was by then already a wanted man, but he wasn't ready yet to turn himself in, Blackie explained. We're staying at what we had nicknamed the Carpet City Motel, so called because, for some strange reason, which no one ever satisfactorily explained, it had carpeting running halfway up the walls. It was a real cheesy place. He continued, but being wanted didn't stop Barry from driving like he always did, a maniac. When we left the motel for the Miami airport to catch a flight back to Baton Rouge, as he was turning onto the highway, instead of stopping at the red light, he cut into a service station and out the other side. I saw him look in the rearview mirror, and he said something like, "Oh shit, let me do the talking. We're getting pulled over by a cop." Blackie smiled in recollection. "Fugler and I are going shit. Barry, now you've done it. See, we had a suitcase in the trunk filled with $2 million in cash. In those days, we usually carried $2 million, always in cash around with us, in a big soft suitcase, in case we needed anything. And now Fugler is shitting himself in the back seat because he's like an attorney, right? How's he going to explain sitting in a car with a wanted man and $2 million? He's thinking disbarred. So while Barry's standing there arguing with a cop and Fugler's shitting himself in the back seat, I get out and pop the top of the car, grab the suitcase, and stay right in front of the cop. Barry, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to split if I'm going to make my flight. There was a car rental place right there at the corner, and I walked into it with my luggage, then sprinted out the back door and grabbed the first parking lot attendant I saw, peeled off 100, and told him to get me to the airport right now. And while I was sitting at the gate waiting for the flight to be called, looking everywhere for cops, Barry and Roy came strolling out to the gate, and Barry, calm as can be, says, "Blackie, where you been?" Needless to say, none of this flagrantly illegal activity has kept Michael Roy Fugler from publicly posing as a pillar of the community. Why should it? Being connected means never having to say you're sorry. He has hosted a weekly TV segment called Consumers and the Law, been a grand knight in the Knights of Columbus, and pursued avocations like swimming, flying, boating, and tennis. As we learned more of Fugler's career, we became more and more incredulous just at how blatantly he operated. In Incorporated, for example, a dummy company called Crawfish Aviation in early 1982, which he promptly changed to California Builders when Iran-Contra Rep. Gene Glick came on the scene. When a company sounding like it's in the business of hauling seafood, Crawfish Aviation, changes its name to an enterprise, California Builders, which sounds like it builds ranch-style homes, nothing too strictly kosher can be going on. Then, quite by accident, we eavesdropped. We overheard something speaking with Fugler's ex-wife asking where the $22 million from the sale of Trinity Energy in 1995 had gone. The ex-Mrs. Fugler was aghast. She and Fugler had divorced at the same time, 1995, that the sale supposedly took place, but she said Fugler had been so seemingly down on his luck at the time that she had to pay him $40,000 to dissolve their union and be done with him. She knew nothing of any sale for $22 million, she said. She thought Fugler had been broke at the time. Tracking SEAL associate Michael Roy Fugler's activities into the present revealed how well connected Barry's smuggling associate remains today. As head of the Millennium Financial Group in New York, he has been instrumental in bringing just two companies public. Both proved fascinating to learn about. The first, Unique Mobility, receives numerous grants from the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, DARPA, the secretive national security agency linked outfit which invented the internet. Unique Mobility also cuts lucrative deals with defense industry giants in ways that have business writers sometimes shaking their heads. Why would Northrop's electronic arm, which had a $2.5 billion in revenue and 12,000 employees, see any value in dealing with the small Unique Mobility Golden Company? A typical story asked. Maybe if it's used for other purposes as well. But it is the second company of the two taken public by Fugler, which led us straight to the secret heart of darkness at the center of the American political process today. Netivation.com portrays itself as an internet public policy and political website, offering a package of fundraising services to candidates and campaigns, receiving a percentage of the campaign contributions made via the web. The name of Netivision's first major congressional endorser we were stunned to discover was Arkansas's Republican Congressman Asa Hutchinson, who, before becoming the marketing poster boy for a company Barry Seal's associate Michael Fugler had just taken public, was the U.S. Attorney for Western Judicial District in Arkansas, encompassing MENA. We always knew we couldn't prosecute Barry Seal, no matter what we got on him, because of the politics involved in the Western Judicial District. Crusty Arkansas State Police Commander Finis Duval told us. While Hutchinson made tough talk speeches to community groups in Arkansas about cleaning up what he even had been forced to concede was a haven for international drug trafficking at MENA, Barry Seal had blithely continued to operate from an airfield just a few short miles from Hutchinson's office. Maybe the sound of C-123's rumbling overhead had scared him, but observers of Hutchinson's lack of performance had grown increasingly skeptical of the boy's fire-eating, crime-fighting credentials. IRS agent William Duncan had been the first to take his accusations public. In a deposition of the Arkansas Attorney General, he was asked, "Are you stating now under oath that you believe that the investigation in and around Mena Airport of money laundering was covered up by the U.S. Attorney?" Duncan's reply, "It was covered up. Hutchinson's serves today," we learned, on the House Speaker's Task Force for a Drug-Free America. As what? An industry representative? He was also called on by his fellow Republicans to give a fiery summation in the Clinton impeachment in the Senate, where he urged justice to rain down like mighty waters, presumably on Mr. Clinton. But were justice to ever really rain down, we would urge the congressman not to wear his good suit that day, because he, along with Bill Clinton, might get awfully wet. By following a money trail left behind by Barry Seal almost 15 years ago, we had discovered that members of the drug smuggling organization to which Seal belonged were still paying off favors for the boys. Next, we turned our attention to the company to which Fugler had supposedly sold his Trinity Energy International Realty Group. Would they turn to be connected to? We heard from several well-informed sources that the chief mover of International Realty, Jack Bernholz, was not unknown in certain circles. This is a very exciting opportunity for IRGR. Bernholz, chairman and president of International Realty Group, had said in the press release announcing the deal. But who was Jack Bernholz? The answer, we thought, might provide some leads to where the massive illegal narcotics industry had gone when it submerged and became invisible after the spectacular cocaine cowboys like Seal were replaced. But we were unprepared for what we found. Tracking the financial preambulations of Trinity Energy had immersed us in a netherworld teeming with pirates, sunken galleons, worthless railroad bonds, bogus banks, chicken empires, phony scions of mega-rich American industrial dynasties, Mexican drug czars, posing as entrepreneurs, and 3-million-acre cocaine ranches in the Brazilian rainforest. That's it for that chapter.